day, and welcome to the Marin County Fire Chief's historical website. Today's program is going to be about the history of the San Anselmo Fire Department and the role that the Sousa family played in that wonderful fire department that, again, like many fire departments, is no longer in existence. It's become part of the Ross Valley Fire Protection District. And to help us through that journey with the Sousa family is the grandson of one of the early founders of San Anselmo, Antone Sousa, who migrated to this country in 1875. And two of his sons became a chief of the San Anselmo, Frank Sousa, and his uncle, Bill, his brother, was a firefighter with the San Anselmo Fire Department. And to help us through that journey is, as I said, Antone. And Antone, welcome to the program. And,
well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be in. It's really an honor to talk about the San Anselmo Fire Department, what my family did
tell us how your grandfather came to this country, where he landed, how he made it to California.
Well, my grandfather came here from South George, the Azores, from a village called Manatas. And I'm not sure how he got here. I know he came across, not to Ellis Island, but to the Castle Wells or whatever it was. There's another small island in New York. Don't know how he got across the country, but he arrived here with an uncle in about 1875. He was young then. He was about, I think he was about 10 years old. Oh. He lived in San Rafael for a few years, and then he moved to San Anselmo. And he married in about 1880, maybe 1890, I think, in that era there, maybe a little bit before that, to Julia Leonardo Silveira, another Portuguese lady from the Azores. And his house, the old Sousa house, was where Wade Thomas School is now. And they had a little ranch there. And he also became a not only a dairyman, but he was also a contractor, and he built a lot of the roads in San Anselmo. One of the things I found out is that he built San Francisco Boulevard in about 1912. And that was, at that time, they said in the paper, in the San Anselmo Herald, it was the longest and straightest road in Marin County. It was 3,000 feet long and 60 feet wide. And he did it with one of those graders drawn by 8 horses, and so that's kind of remarkable, I think, But he was a very well respected man. I never met him because he died in 1931, yeah. But all the things I've heard and read about him, was a good man, just a good man. Yeah. They did have 13 children, though.
Wow, yeah. Yeah. And how did your father and your uncle get? They were raised and went to local schools, and
oh yeah, they were raised in San Anselmo. They went to called San Anselmo Grammar School at the time. It was right in the back. It was almost on Woodland Avenue, and the house butted on that. And they were the last group of the Sousa family. There was a number of children that were older, born in 1890s and early 1900s. And my uncle was born in 1909, my dad 1911, my uncle George in 1915. And then my Aunt Dorothy, the last one, Dorothy Sousa, was born in 1917. So they were the last of the litter, really. And there was a little space between them because a couple of children passed away as babies in that time era. But as far as they went to that school, and then they took the train to Tamalpais High School. In fact, my dad was on that team of 1929 that won the North Coast Championship. In baseball, they were good baseball players. Everybody played baseball in those days, though.
Yeah, that was a big sport.
Yeah, it was.
And
alert from calendar, Halloween.
And they. In Corner Manera, Sausalito, baseball was a big. We did an article on baseball a while back. Paul Smith did it. It was amazing, but I keep wondering, boy, that was a long trip for a kid to go to school from San Anselmo to Mill Valley twice a day on the train. But the train system was wonderful in those days.
Oh, they used to tell me about that. they liked taking the train. I mean, and of course, the Sousa family was notorious for a mischief. And through my research and everything else, I found out some things. A lot of family stories that they told were actually true. But one of the things these guys used to do is they go through the tunnels, and when they get in the tunnel, they reach out and they hit the lights with their baseball bats. Break them. That was really cool. My But my dad was very somber. My uncle would tell the story, and my dad said, "That's not true. That's not true, Bill."
Yeah, yeah. And how did they get involved with the fire department? How did that go?
I think I'll tell you, people don't know, but I have another relative that started before them. My Aunt Dorothy married a gentleman named Joe Simon, and Joe Simon was a few years older than my Uncle Bill, and he also went to TAM. And he got involved with the fire department as a volunteer, in the mid 1920s. And I also believe that I had a couple of uncles, Tony Sousa and John Philip Sousa, how you like that one, that were older, and they were volunteers when Charlie Cartwright was in there, and that goes way back. But my Uncle Joe was hired. I'm not sure the year he was hired, probably in the late 20s, maybe 29, 30. And he was a captain there for a number of years. In fact, all three of them worked there in the 30s together. I have some pictures here that I can put up if you want. So he was the first one. He married my Aunt Dorothy, the youngest of the Sousas. And so he was there, but then he went on, he worked at Fairfax Lumber for years. And of course, everybody's passed away now. My dad came second, I believe. He was a volunteer right in the 30s, but I think he started in about 33 or 34. I don't remember the day, the year quite well. But and then my uncle started right after that, and I think they were in the volunteers prior to that. My dad was hired first, and then my uncle was hired later on. And it's very interesting because I have some pictures of the San Anselmo Fire Department in about 1938. It's a nice picture, and it's got I don't remember one of the guys' names, but it's got Nell, of course, as chief, and it's got Ambrose Ferrario as first assistant chief, my dad as second assistant chief, my Uncle Joe as a captain, and then there were three engineers. My Uncle Bill, there was a guy named Charlie Zini, and I can't remember the other guy, but that was the fire department. However, they had a wonderful volunteer group. So they had probably about 30 or 40 volunteers too, so they had a pretty good department from what I gather.
Did they serve during the horse and buggy when they had horses? Did they serve during that era?
No, they didn't. My dad, they were kids then, really, because the horse and buggy, the first motorized truck was a white, and I think that came out, I don't know, in the 20s. I have some information about that, but that was built by Deischer, and they weren't old enough for the horse and buggy stuff. They rode horses all over the place, but they didn't really get in there until later on. I think Nello was in there maybe when the horse and buggy, and of course Charlie Cartwright was the first initial chief of the department. There was a volunteer chief named John Fonensbeck that was a chief before that. The town was incorporated in 1907, and then the fire department was officially began in that time era. I believe the department, the building was built in about 1910. The city hall and the great firehouse that I missed so much, was built in that time too.
That firehouse for its time was quite a building.
Oh, it was a great building to work in. I used to work vacation relief and summers and all kinds of stuff. And I love that old fire department. A lot of stories, a lot of memories. The tower was amazing building,
A throwback to those days where that's where you hung the hose to dry.
Yeah. It had 5 stories, and if you count the ground floor, and then there was an elevator shaft, like an elevator shaft that went up in one corner of the tower, and you had little rooms at each story, and then there was a spiral staircase that went in between all that, and it was really a neat place. They didn't hang any hose there when I was there. I don't know when they stopped doing that, but they had a little like a little oven, that they put the hose in the back, and it dried it. But That's what they did in the old days. In fact, the old fire department, one section of it, they extended it. If you see pictures of the old one, it's just the front building, not the side that comes out, and it's the tower and then the city hall. Beautiful building. And then they added on, but in the old section, they still had the old grain chute that came down for the horses, and they had this concrete that was sliced so the horses wouldn't slip going out, things like that. And I know that when they tore it down, they found some little artifacts in there. I know Marty found some stuff in there, hidden around there. But it was a lot of memories. I was sad. I got to go in the tower about 2 years ago because they were changing the roof around. The roof at one time used to peak up, and then they had apparently they had a bell in there, and in the early, I don't know when, 1900 somewhere, they took the bell out, but they had to cut the roof down. So they pulled the bell out, and the roof was flat. It went up, peaked, and then was flat. And I think maybe 8 or 9 years ago, they decided to restore that, and they did. And when they were doing it, I asked Judy Coy if I could go into the tower from the second story by the planning commission there. And I was so disappointed because all it is one giant shaft with one floor in it, and there's nothing in there, no windows, no anything. It's just a big facade, really, and it's just not there anymore. But it looks nice from the outside,
When you were little, what's your first account of coming down to the station?
Oh God, my first account. Well, I used to ride with my dad in the fire car sometimes. My first account was going down there on. I used to dress up. My mom used to dress me up for church, and I go and I walk back from church sometimes because they wanted to drive. I wanted to walk. I was about 8 or 9, and I went into the firehouse, and I don't know if anybody ever remember Buddy Lamb, but he was a character, Bud Lamb, and he was from another San Anselmo family there, but he was a character, and he would see me and he would grab me and we would wrestle, and he'd throw me down and he'd tickle me and I'd be laughing and rolling under the tables and all that. And I come home disheveled, my clothes were all dirty, and my mom would say, "That's the Lamb again, isn't it?" But he was a great guy. In fact, he had a heart condition, and he retired very early, and he went to Hawaii and he lived to be 92. So the weather was good there, but everybody liked Buddy Lamb. If you mention it to old timers, they'll know Buddy Lamb. He's a great guy.
Let me ask the question. I don't think I've ever asked this kind of question. Do you recall any time that your father or your uncle were injured at the
Yes,
station?
I do. One time, well, my father got a few scratches, but my uncle, that's what made him retire. They were at a fire, and there was he was up on a roof, and he was walking along, and he fell through the roof. The roof caved in, and he got caught, and his arm was all folded back. I don't know the year, but it was, and he said he was kind of passed out, and he remembers these like hands coming out of nowhere and just picking him out, and it was Don Whitney. And I don't know if anybody remembers Don, but Don and Bob Beadle were big guys and big strong guys, and Don pulled him out of that, and they took him to the hospital. But it really injured his shoulder so bad that he did retire then. So he was injured. My dad came home with a few scratches and things like that, but he was very fortunate. And my dad was the kind of guy that he was a quiet guy, and he never bragged about anything, but he did a lot of stuff. He was my hero, so I'm kind of bragging about him. But he would do mouth to mouth on little kids and pull them out of swimming pool. He would do things that he shouldn't have been doing as chief. Like there was a kid that was stranded on Red Hill, a little girl, and they used to have those cliffs, out there. There were cuts, and then there was a little ledge, and and this little girl got out there, and he was the first guy there. So he's the guy that goes out in the ledge, which he actually shouldn't have been doing, but he was that kind of guy. He was always there for the people. Wonderful man.
My recollection of meeting your dad when I would go up with the breathing apparatus to be filled, he was as you said, a very quiet, a real gentleman. I always
he was.
Always respected his demeanor. He's just
and he never got angry very often, but when he did, you knew it, but he was very calm, just a real gentleman, and very unassuming. He didn't brag about anything, and he was very, very intelligent. He was the one that when they started the alarm system, he was the guy that really was involved in that alarm system. And he was the guy that, when they put they had four main circuits that went out from the alarm room. And he was the guy that always called to fix it and things like that, because he really knew the stuff.
He also, time to pull the rain and connect wires.
One more thing, they used to have on the tower when we got radios. I think San Anselmo was one of the first stations to get radios, but they couldn't pick up the sign, the particular radio transmissions very well. So if you see old pictures of the firehouse, you see a regular roof, and then you see this big 20-foot lattice thing that went up. It looked like it was made out of a Rector set. It was all wood, and my dad built that. He went up there and he built that. So that thing was 20 feet higher than the tower, and they put the antenna on that. And I thought, I used to go up there. I go, oh, God, I wouldn't go up there, And every year, in the old days, I know Larkspur did this. All the fire departments did Christmas decorations, and San Anselmo was really, they had a lot of neat stuff. But my dad would be the guy that would go up and hang the lights on the lattice, So no, he did some interesting things. I have another. Okay, I'm just.
Was there any time in your career you thought of becoming a fireman?
Oh gosh, yes. I hung around the fire department for years. I started out as a little, about 13 or 14, burning lots. We used to burn lots and go around in the summer, and that was a lot of fun. A couple of kids we'd get to ride in the tailboard of this old truck, and there would be an off-duty fireman that would, be there supervising. We'd just pull the hose and stuff like that. But and I remember two guys that were really great. Was Johnny Bell was one of the guys who would go out with us, and Charlie Pinza was another one who was a character. He ended up at Ross, but that's when I started. And then it's kind of like a rites of passage. Most of the sons of firefighters or police fighters, if they wanted to, would go to the county firehouse in the summer. It was kind of like nepotism. We didn't have to take tests or anything. We just hired as helpers. And I started there in, I think, 58 as a helper. And that year, I remember Marty was a third-year helper, so he was leaving. George Thornton was a third-year helper. And Stan Rowan, I think, was a first-year fireman there, But that's where I started, and I worked there for 3 years in the summers. God, I can name a lot of names there, but I'm not going to do that right now because it's just I talk too much. And then after that, when I became a volunteer when I was 18. And then when I turned 19, I started working at the firehouse, just vacation relief, things like that. When there was time, I was going to USF, but most of the time it was in the summer or during Christmas or when guys were sick and I wasn't going to school. And I did that for, I graduated in about 3 years. And then I graduated from USF and I was in grad school for, for a year. And then I worked a lot there too, just off and on. And then, of course, I was called in 1966 in May. I got commissioned as a second lieutenant through ROTC, and I went into the service, and I was gone for 3 years, basically. And when I got out of the service in 69, after I went to Vietnam and all that stuff. But I came back to Marin County in June of 69, bought a little house in Glen Road I love to tell people that, for $15,000, which was a lot of money then for me. And anyway, I started working at the fire department. I got a job teaching at Marin Catholic, but I still would work at the firehouse in the summer and things like that, and work in my house and all that kind of stuff. And I did that off and on for a while. And then what happened was Marin Catholic went out on strike in about 1974, I think, in that time frame. And I was out on strike for about three weeks, maybe. And they had a test there at the firehouse. And so I took the test and I passed it. And I know I got a couple of points for being in the service and all that. But I was interviewed, and I remember I was interviewed by 3 chiefs, I think. I don't even remember who they were. And one of the questions they asked me was what I had made captain in the Army. Promotions were fast then, so I left the Army as a captain. And one of the chiefs said, well, you're a captain in the service, how do you feel about taking orders from guys that, were, that maybe weren't in the service, but, maybe even are younger than you, because I was 27 or something like that. And I just said, hey, I know how to follow orders. That's the way the service is. And, the guys that really saved my ass in the service were the NCOs. I went to Vietnam as a young second lieutenant, with very, very, very unknowledgeable and very, very naive, because I came from San Anselmo, which is a little town. And so I knew how to do that. So anyway, to make a long story short, Dick McLaren was the chief then, and he offered me the job. And it was really a hard decision, because I loved the firefighting. What happened though was I talked to my dad, and my dad said, well, that would be a good idea. My mother, I don't know if anybody knew my mother, she was part German, and, she had her own way. And she just said, you went to college and blah, 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 blah. And I said, but this is a good job. And then I'll tell you, one of the guys that really, really convinced me, otherwise, not really, but just gave me some good points, was Bob Beadle. I really liked Bob Beadle. He was a good friend of mine, and I miss him. But anyway, he's the one that kind of put the lid on it and said, I think you should stay in teaching. And I did. And I don't regret it at all. I missed it. I really, sometimes I think, I could have done this and that and all that, but I don't miss it. I love the fire department. I love going into the fire, talk to guys and all that. But I feel I had my career, and I really enjoyed it. And I really influenced some people, and that's all you can do. You made a difference in people's lives. And my wife taught kindergarten for 35 years at St. Rita's, and she influenced a lot of people, so I don't regret it at all. I just, sometimes I wonder.
Antone, what we'd like to do here on the set is we want to bring you back, and we want you to tell a story, and with photographs that you have, and we'll make a whole presentation on the history of the San Anselmo Fire Department. And we'd like you to narrate that for us and write it, if you don't mind.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so that would be our goal. We'd have you actually start talking as much, and we'd put some of those great photos you must have.
I have some here. I have one here. It's my pride and joy. It's I don't know if you can see that.
Back it away a little bit. A little close. Come in.
Okay.
Keep coming. Oh, no, can't see it.
Oh, there it is.
There. Yeah.
I got to turn it sideways. I don't know what the hell I'm doing here.
It's not working. It's not working.
Oh.
It's okay. But that's
so there it is.
Yeah, leave it.
Yeah, this is one of the original fire hats from San Anselmo. It's leather, and actually this is the hat that my dad wore as assistant chief. Unfortunately, when old Engine 2 was retired, it went out to the corporation yard, and a lot of these helmets were hung on there, and it got tossed out somehow. But my dad brought this home, so this is his assistant chief's fire hat, and this is the only thing I'm hanging on to, because it means a lot,
Yeah.
But it's all leather and all that, and it's pretty cool. Speaking of that, I don't know if you guys can see this. It's not a very good picture. Shoot. How's that? I can't. How am I doing there? It's kind of
back up.
Okay.
Not that good, Antone. Not that good. So,
yeah.
Anyway,
these three gentlemen are wearing hats, and my dad is in the middle. He's got the white hat on. My Uncle Joe is on one side with the captain hat on, and my Uncle Bill is on the other side. This was taken probably in the late 1930s, maybe 1939, something like that, Okay. And so I just wanted to show that.
Yeah. No, we want to have you back and to make and show those photos and present them to a part of the program. So I know.
Okay, I missed that. I misunderstood you.
I know you like to write, and you're a great writer.
Oh, yeah.
So we'd like to have you come back and do the history.
Oh, sure.
And maybe interview Marty. Talk a little bit.
I'd love to do that. We're a great tag team,
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Hey, I want to thank you for taking the time. to talk to us today. And I'm looking forward to seeing the history of the San Anselmo Fire Department. So start working on it.
I will. And I want to thank you guys for letting me come on, and kudos to the work that you guys do as far as these videos and all the work, because I really enjoy it. And it's wonderful that we should keep this history going, because we're all getting old and we got to write it down because nobody else will, So thank you very much.
So we're hoping that somebody in the next generation picks up the
exactly.
So you take care of yourself, please.
Yeah.
And we'll be seeing you down the road, okay?
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right.